What's up everybody, it's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and we are back with another tutorial for you guys. So this week we're going to be going over something that I actually answered in a Q&A that I did with Jay-Z Mics the other day, and that is how do you make a digital synth sound more analog. So we're going to go over a couple different tips and tricks and techniques that you can do inside the synth itself and with post-processing to give your synths just a little bit more life and character and just a little bit of extra sauce so they don't all sound like they're coming out of the same couple different soft synths. So if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. If you want, we're actually giving away 20 analog inspired SERUM presets, so just go to the description, pop in your email, and then you'll be able to unlock those and download those. And they'll be similar to the ones that we're going to go over today, but we'll have some basses and pads and plucks and basically just some free stuff for you to try out some of these methods with. So without further ado, let's actually go ahead and hop in and see what we can do to give these synths some extra character. All right, now that we're actually into the DAW, let me go ahead and pull up. I'm just going to do all of these in SERUM, and that's what the presets that I'm going to be giving away in the description are for. You can do this in pretty much any synth ever. SERUM is just the most visual, and it's probably the easiest for a lot of beginners that'll be watching this to follow. So I'm just going to go over a really basic kind of brass pad that I've made. So it's not really doing anything crazy. We've just got the envelope right here decaying. We've just got a saw wave right here and a Juno wave right here. And then we've got a cutoff that is operated by this first LFO. So it kind of opens and then closes. So that's really all that you have for that basic pad. And then post-processing, we just have a little bit of reverb and a little bit of EQ. And honestly, it sounds okay. But in my opinion, it's a little clean and a little dry, and it just doesn't have much character, opposed to something like this. So let me go ahead and show you what we can do. So now we're in the digital brass. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this oscillator A, and let's pull this down by a couple cents, and let's take oscillator B and pull it up by a couple cents. And that's just gonna give us a nice little bit of extra detuning. You can see right here that we've got the unison driven up with some detuning already. But that's just gonna give us a little bit of extra thickness. And then what we're gonna do right here is we're gonna go through and actually make a little LFO that's not gonna do anything too crazy, and it can be pretty sporadic. It doesn't need to be very like on the line or anything. You actually want this to be kind of as random as possible. And so let's do something like this. Let's see. And we're gonna set this, we're actually gonna turn the BPM off, and let's just go to the hertz, because it'll give you a little bit more fine definition. And then we're gonna drag this to that fine tuning as well. So this is gonna give you that kind of like analog warble style. And just go to the matrix and make sure that it's selected for both ways. That way you're gonna get tuning and detuning. We'll drag this down so it's not gonna do anything too crazy. But it's a pretty gentle slope anyway. Let me turn it up so you can hear what it's doing. We can turn it down a little bit more than that though, that's a little drastic. But that sounds really nice, and that's gonna give us a little bit of that kind of analog warble that you're gonna hear a lot in pitch. And it's gonna do it a little bit differently in this than it would like a chorus, because it's not super linear and it's not very predictable. So once you've got this, you could even slow this down a little bit. And if you set this to trigger, it's just gonna loop back. So if you set it to envelope, it'll only do that little LFO one time. So if you want it to just kind of be a pad or something that's gonna sustain, do something like this, set it as a trigger, set the hertz really low so it's gonna go pretty slowly, and then just do that to the fine tune. You can also do that with something similar. You could go to like a bend and do that. Let's do the same thing on this. And then let's go through and let's pop on a chorus. And in SERUM, that's my main things that I like to do. I like to basically detune the actual oscillator just a little bit, and then throw on an LFO that's gonna do some actual detuning automation kind of as you play it. Then maybe mess around with the bend or you know, a mirror or something like that, just to give the wavetable a little bit of extra warp too. And then throw on like a chorus, and then let's actually take this to what I think is kind of like the secret sauce for making stuff sound a little bit more retro, and that is RC20 Retro Color. If you don't have this, you can get this from Splice for pretty cheap. I think they can even do like the rent it as you go monthly kind of thing. So maybe $5 a month, and you can go ahead and cop this, and this is really cool. It's got noise, it's got wobble, which is going to be kind of like a flutter. It's got distort, which is going to be any type of distortion. They've got a bunch of different types over here. You've got digital, which is going to be more like bit crushing. You've got space, which is just like really long kind of reverbs. And then you've got magnetic, which this is going to be almost like an LFO that's going to almost like an LFO to actually turn that off. So let's go ahead and let's just kind of start over with whatever they give you at startup, which is vinyl. All right, so let's go ahead and start looking at what we're gonna do here. So the first thing is I'm gonna start with noise, because that's gonna be the thing that you're gonna get most from analog gear. So if you turn up follow, it's only gonna play that noise while you play it, so it's not gonna add a bunch of sustain to that noise that you don't want. So I'll turn the follow up pretty high. They've also got duck where you can sidechain that noise. So if you want the actual synth to come in, but with the follow all the way up, it's kind of hard to hear. I'll typically leave the duck pretty down, especially for something like this where you want that kind of analog hiss. And then you can just kind of go through and see what you like to take. Something like this will probably do really well DC, because that's actually going to give you that kind of like power, like cable signal. Then the next thing you can do is some distortion, just to add a little bit of tube, and you can actually pick basically where you're going to distort. So we'll turn that down a little bit. And then you've got the magnetic here, which I kind of like for a little bit of flutter, but nothing crazy. We'll leave it right there, and then we've got the same thing with wobble. This is going to kind of give it that more pitch variation, kind of like we did with our LFO earlier. So here's the before and after. So we're just going to add a little bit of extra distortion and some noise, and honestly some gunk that a lot of the time if you're recording outboard you might be trying to get rid of. But if you're doing analog, it's really nice to mix that back in. And then we'll take Pro Q and we'll kind of do a little roll off up here in the very top end, and maybe a little bit of boost down here in the low mids. And then you can just kind of adjust everything to taste. So if you want to kind of pull this noise down, maybe that's a little bit more natural sounding. You can also change the post or pre. That actually sounds a little bit better to me, turning post off. And then, you know, just kind of apply those to different style things. So like we did it to a pad over here before we recorded the video. So you've got something like... opposed to something like this. So really messing with this kind of fine tuning right here and really making sure that you've got some extra dimension and depth, and then, you know, going through and doing some post-processing with something like RC20 or Vinyl by Isotope or any of those other kind of plugins that are gonna add noise and distortion and maybe like, you know, tape wobble or anything like that, are really, really, really nice for giving your digital synths just a little bit more life and character. You know, sometimes they might lose a little bit of brightness, so in the mix, you might need to bump that up or kind of, you know, drag one of the wetnesses of these down. RC Retro is on a wet and dry, so, you know, if you decide that you like the tone that you've added, but you don't need that much, just drag that down. And then same thing in SERUM, you know, if you decide that it's kind of detuning too much, just take this and drag this down just a little bit. So basically, just a quick little recap. Make your synth how you want, and then, you know, turn this down a little bit, this up a little bit. I wouldn't go more than like 10 cents, because then you start to get kind of audible detuning that sounds a little bit just out of key. And then just make a really long, kind of lush, gentle LFO. Drag it to the fine tuning. You can drag it to any of these parameters. So you've got, you know, like your syncs, bends, PMWs, asymmetrics. All of those kind of things are going to add that little variation that you're going to get a lot of the time if you hook up you know, a Juno from the 80s or an Oberheim from the 80s or something like that. So hopefully all these tips helped and you can kind of mix and match them to make a sound that really fits your need and your production. As you can see, there's a couple different things that you can do. You've got your options with detuning, you've got your options with setting up LFOs, you've got all of your different noises and crackles and different filtering that you can do just to give that synth a little bit of extra analog quality, give it some extra warmth, give it some extra different kind of like variation, so it's not just a chord holding down a sustained note that's not really doing anything super interesting. So feel free to mix and match these techniques, feel free to kind of build on them and expand upon them, and you know, if you want to, go download those presets in the description. If you're looking for any more samples or presets and you like this video, head over to our website, makepopmusic.com. We sell tons of presets, samples, courses, all kinds of great stuff. We have blog posts that you can check out, so we'd love to see you over there. Feel free to check out our Facebook community if you want to chat with us or with any of the other 25,000 members. We'd love to have you talk about your work, answer any questions that you have. Other than that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys like it, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week with another video. Much love. Hope you're all staying safe. Peace out.
Nobody fucking likes me. Nobody fucking likes me. Nobody